The story opens with Alfred, the once legendary hero who now looks more like an old sack of bones held together, trying to pretend his cursed knee isn't ruining his life. While his doctor scolds him for pretending he's fine and reminding him his hero days ended the moment he took that blow from the Demon King. She then leaves him with medicine and a warning not to push himself too hard. Later that night, Alfred lies in bed, knee throbbing, thinking he deserves a break after years as an adventurer, but recalls Lord Lint asks him to lead the new Wizard Knight unit, and when he tries to decline, Lint pushes him to at least train the royal wizards instead. Before Alfred can refuse that, the guild master barges in and announces a new guild will open in the Demon King's former territory, and Alfred will be the guild leader. Overwhelmed, he realizes expectations trap him, and staying here means zero rest. Even S-rank is nothing but a gilded cage. Choosing his health over duty, he quietly packs his bags and slips out of the capital before dawn, planning to take a peaceful countryside retreat where no one will find him. At the guild, Alfred hunts for an easy, long-term countryside request far from the capital and settles on an F-rank job from Mulg village, guarding against wolves and boars for simple room and board. The receptionist is stunned, but he accepts before she can talk him out of it. He thinks the pay is tiny, but with his noble stipend, he does not mind at all, and the thought of peaceful countryside life already feels like paradise. After traveling for a week on a carriage, he finishes the rest of the trip on foot. His knee aches, but the forest air and open sky make the slow walk pleasant. After 3 hours of walking with nothing but trees around him, he suddenly hears the sound of a beast and a girl shouting, and finds an elf girl fighting a wolf. Before Beast Wolf can turn on her again, Alfred steps in, grabs it by the jaw and slams it into the ground. The elf girl thanks him and introduces herself as Myert, and explains she's searching for herbs for her sick little sister. Alfred looks at her determination and wonders if he can really just walk away, leaving such a hot lady behind. Alfred realizes helping Myert means missing the village gates before they close, but leaving her to be eaten would weigh on him forever. So he decides to help, joking that he's in no rush. Relieved, Myert grabs his hand and excitedly leads him to the herb site. When they arrive, she worries because she can't smell any medicinal herbs, but Alfred spots some ivy with chewed green leaves and points it out. She suggests another spot, only to admit a basilisk has recently made its nest in that cave. Alfred is shocked. Basilisks are B-rank monsters that can turn people to stone and spread lethal poison through their blood. Myert loses hope, but Alfred casually says he's actually pretty good at taking them down and walks on. At the cave, he asks if she can smell herbs inside. When she confirms it, he takes her basket and tells her to wait outside and shout if anything goes wrong. The cave is deep, but the herbs are untouched. Eventually, he feels the basilisk's presence and blocks its sudden attack with a magic circle while calmly gathering herbs. Once he has enough, he picks up a small stone, charges it with acceleration magic, and throws it, cleanly piercing the basilisk. Alfred smiles with confidence, admitting to himself that it has been a long time since he last dealt with a basilisk. Careful not to splatter poison and ruin the cave, he avoids further damage and heads back, while Myert anxiously fidgets at the entrance. When Alfred finally emerges from the cave, she lights up instantly, and he hands her the basket of herbs, making her genuinely relieved, then drags the corpse out of the cave and asks for her help dismantling it, leaving her stunned because she cannot believe he actually defeated a basilisk, piling praises at him, making Alfred grow embarrassed. She then quickly takes off her jacket, revealing her giant plots, and Alfred accidentally glances before freezing that she can even bench press him. She slices off a section of the hide with her knife and hands it to him, explaining that its tails, fangs, and elbows sell for high prices. Its blood is valuable for medicine. Its hide makes strong leather, and its meat can be eaten, meaning no part of the creature goes to waste. After packing everything, Alfred thanks her for helping, and when they notice the sun setting, they both realize they should set up camp, which makes Myert panic a little before admitting that the forest at night is scary. So Alfred assures her casually that he will protect her. Later, they sit by a bonfire and roast food for dinner, and as the forest grows darker, he notices she is dozing off and asks if she is not hungry. She explains she is just sleepy, but he reminds her that sleeping outside is dangerous, while she quietly asks why he is even out here. Hence, he explains he is on a quest heading toward a village, which surprises her. Then she asks if this delay will affect him, and he tells her there is no deadline, so she offers to guide him properly. When he mentions he is searching for Mulg village, she reacts in shock and tells him that Mulg is her home, then becomes even more surprised when she realizes he plans to stay there, smiling as the truth settles in. Alfred feels relieved as well, thinking that being a guardsman is not bad at all, and that it is a job where he can protect people's smiles up close. He looks forward to enjoying the peaceful atmosphere and his future countryside life. Thanks to Meyert guiding him, he reaches the village without getting lost, and when they approach the small settlement, he thinks it looks like a wonderful place, while Meyert cheerfully tells him he will start fitting in before he realizes it. The villagers quickly recognize Meyert and gather around her, and then they all freeze when they see Alfred standing beside her. So she explains that he is the one who saved her from the wolves and even defeated a basilisk, which immediately makes Alfred flustered as the villagers stare at him in awe over his strength. She hurries off to deliver the medicine, and the village mayor arrives through the crowd, prompting Alfred to explain that he accepted the mission to serve as Mulg village's guardsman, and the mayor recognizes him before announcing that they will hold a welcome party tonight, then takes Alfred to the small building prepared as his accommodation, which also serves as the guard station. Alfred finds the place quite old, but does not complain, and asks the mayor to explain his duties. So the mayor casually sets a chair in front of the gate and tells him that soaking up the sun here every day is basically the job since he is responsible for defending against invaders, though no one ever comes to such a remote place, and Alfred begins to wonder if this village only needs him as a decorative scarecrow. The mayor then adds that it would help a lot if Alfred assists with farming during the day, and that when villagers go outside the settlement, he should escort them in case wolves or bandits cause trouble, although fighting is only expected in the rarest circumstances, which is completely fine for Alfred, and he agrees with a smile. The mayor admits the villagers were expecting a younger person for the role and were shocked to see an older veteran arrive, and Alfred finally understands their reactions earlier. They continue the tour of the village as the mayor asks why Alfred decided to become a guardsman, and Alfred explains his knee injury, which prompts the mayor to tell him to relax in the village hot springs since they work wonders on worn-out bodies. That evening, a lively welcome party is held at the mayor's house to celebrate Alfred becoming their new guard. And later that night, when Alfred returns to his station, he hears growling and the movements of a wolf pack approaching the village, realizing that it would be terrible if anyone were harmed on his very first night. Wanting to make a good impression and avoid being labeled useless, he immediately rushes out. He leaps from the house and runs toward the danger, and soon spots a magnificent demon wolf emerging from the forest, a creature so old and powerful that even he has never seen such a specimen before, and he remembers that these rare magical beasts can use magic. The demon wolf roars and charges, releasing a magically infused howl that would paralyze an average adventurer, but Alfred raises his palm to cancel its effect before grabbing its jaws and slamming it into the ground. The beast crashes and growls as the rest of the pack circles, and Alfred observes that they are all demons, but the massive alpha is the only one capable of magic, and since there are 20 of them, he thinks fighting every single one will take too long, so he decides he only needs to take down the boss. He wants to use magic, but knows that fire or lightning could start a forest fire, and water would just complicate things, so he chooses to strike with an accelerated magic barrier, though the demon wolf dodges the attack, forcing him to keep adjusting until he finally smashes it into the earth again. Despite the tension, he starts to grin because he suddenly remembers how fun it is to fight strong monsters, and once the wolf is pinned, he tells it that he can easily end it, but will spare the entire pack if they swear never to cause harm to the people of Mulg village. He then adds that as a wizard, if he had fought seriously from the beginning, their entire pack would already be dead, so it is better for everyone if the wolves just leave peacefully, especially since fighting such a magnificent creature feels wasteful to him. The demon wolf slowly rises, and to Alfred's shock, it speaks directly into his mind through telepathy, calling him a robust child human and acknowledging defeat even after fighting seriously, which leaves Alfred surprised but pleased. Alfred respects its strength and intelligence as a magical beast and introduces himself, and the wolf replies that it has no proper name and wishes for him to bestow one, turning the moment into an impromptu naming ceremony. Alfred thinks for a moment and gives the wolf the name Fem, and the wolf seems to like it, then vows that as long as it remains the pack leader, Mulg village will never be attacked again. Alfred receives something from the wolf as an apology for the chaos, and he actually finds it useful since he knows the villagers were scared out of their minds, so having a token of victory to calm them down would help a lot. The wolf even jokes that it had planned to bring him its severed head before settling on giving him a fang, telling him to show it to anyone when needed, and Alfred accepts it gladly, telling the wolf to call him if anything ever troubles them. And the wolf raises its paw into his palm like a handshake even though it has no hands, before the entire pack eventually heads back into the forest. By morning, Alfred returns home and runs into Meiert, who had gone to invite him for breakfast but found his place empty, and now she looks relieved seeing him safe, while Alfred feels drained and secretly terrified at the idea of growing old as a virgin. Later, when the mayor arrives, he asks Alfred about the wolf howls from the night before and explains that once preparations are complete, they plan to hunt the wolves in the mountains, asking Alfred to assist. But Alfred shocks him by saying he already patrolled the forest last night, and the mayor snaps, saying he doesn't care how much of a veteran adventurer Alfred is because what he did was reckless and dangerous. And Alfred apologizes, trying to calm him by explaining that the wolves promised not to bare their fangs at the village again. The mayor, unconvinced, says there are no wolves in this region capable of speaking to humans, and Alfred realizes the man thinks he's lying, so he pulls out the fang and shows it, making the mayor's eyes almost pop out while the villagers around him gasp, and Alfred is stunned by how big their reaction is as they interrogate him while he desperately tries to explain. Meiert, amazed, calls it a legendary treasure, and the mayor apologizes for doubting him, explaining that the demon wolf king only gives his fangs to someone he acknowledges as his master. Just like 300 years ago when a retired hero lived here and fought the demon wolf day and night, until the wolf eventually gifted him a fang as recognition. After which the region stayed peaceful until the hero died and the demon wolf king disappeared, and the mayor says this story has been passed down as village legend. A villager even brings out the old fang kept as their treasure for generations, and Meiert happily concludes that this means the wolves won't attack Mulg village anymore, while everyone cheers for him. And some villagers call out to Meiert to help arrange the party for the night, while Alfred stops her briefly to apologize for missing breakfast and asks about her sick sister, saying he will visit. And she happily invites him before rushing off. For an old geezer like Alfred, staying up all night partying is rough, but this kind of fellowship matters in the countryside, and everyone is celebrating him with so much excitement that he feels genuinely happy knowing the villagers have accepted him. But by the time he returns to his cabin after sunset, he's so exhausted that he collapses into bed and falls asleep immediately. Lying on his bed, Alfred thinks about the demon wolf and admits to himself how cool the creature was, yet ridiculously fluffy, and just as he's thinking this, something wet brushes against his face, and he sits up only to find Fem standing there, leaving Alfred stunned as he asks if it's really him. Fem confirms it and suddenly shrinks into a small form, which shocks Alfred even more. But Fem casually says such magic is nothing for him, and before Fem can even explain why he came, Alfred immediately buries his hands in that fluffy fur, smiling like an idiot and saying he's been dying to pet him, while Fem protests that he shouldn't be treated like a dog, but Alfred keeps fluffing him anyway. When Fem finally speaks, saying he has a favor to ask, Alfred remembers Fem telling him to call for help whenever he needed, and he's amazed that Fem shrank himself just to get here, and he even offers the demon wolf some food before asking the real reason for the visit. Fem explains that this region used to be demon wolf territory, but after the previous king, Fem's father, died, the wild boars grew too strong and drove the pack away. So Fem was summoned back, took control as the new king and fought beside the pack, but the demon boar boss is absurdly strong. And without a territory, the wolves are starving, and Alfred jokes that maybe that's why Fem is skinny, earning him a glare. Fem says they were planning to attack the village last night, but he stopped them, and now they're running out of time, so the pack wants Alfred's help. and Alfred says he doesn't mind helping but wonders if the mighty demon wolf king really can't beat a boar, making Fem bristle and insist the boar is genuinely strong. Alfred teases him for being cute, and Fem snaps that Alfred didn't even notice him sneaking in, saying Alfred's ability to sense presence is as bad as an ordinary animal. And Alfred has no comeback because he didn't feel any murderous intent from the pack at all, so he admits it, which makes Fem unexpectedly pleased. Alfred then says it's getting late and he wants to sleep, telling Fem to take him to the boar's territory tomorrow, and when he lies down, he notices Fem curling up beside him, surprising him, though somehow he doesn't dislike it, and he casually asks Fem why the boars are so strong, and Fem also doesn't know. Alfred then tells him about showing the fang to the villagers and their dramatic reaction, asking what the mayor meant by Fem acknowledging him as a master, and Fem looks confused, but then starts cuddling him again, making Alfred sigh because he can tell Fem is using the good boy routine to dodge the question, so he decides not to push further. In the morning, Fem wakes him up right before Myard arrives with breakfast, and when she tries to enter the cabin, Alfred immediately steps out to block her view so she doesn't accidentally see a demon wolf king sitting on his bed. Myard eventually spots Fem, and instead of panicking, she lights up with excitement, so Alfred quickly introduces Fem as his pet, even though she immediately senses that behind the cute appearance he is actually the demon wolf king. Making Alfred worry she might be scared, but Fem casually speaks up, openly shocking Myard not because she fears him, but because she finds it incredible that he can talk, and Alfred feels relieved seeing her genuinely delighted. After breakfast, Alfred heads off to inform the mayor about Fem's request that they exterminate the demon boars. And while the mayor takes it seriously, the villagers are simply thrilled at the thought of having boar meat and cheer him on as they wish him luck. Fem then guides Alfred out of the village, shifting back into his towering true form. And along the way, Alfred confirms whether the previous king was the one who fought the hero 300 years ago, only for Fem to correct him by saying the previous king was actually that king's son, making Alfred stop for a moment as he realizes that Fem is the grandson of the legendary demon wolf king. And Fem notices Alfred staggering and asks if his knee is hurting, prompting Alfred to admit he pushed himself too much during the fight with the wolves. Fem offers to let Alfred ride on his back, shocking him because demon wolves never let humans do that. But Fem says he's making an exception since Alfred is doing all this for him. So Alfred thanks him and climbs on before Fem takes off at incredible speed. Eventually, Fem announces that they've arrived, and Alfred looks around to find only a barren wasteland, unsure if any boars could really be living here. But Fem says this is just how it looks at the moment and asks Alfred if he's ready, then lifts his head and releases a thunderous howl so loud Alfred has to cover his ears. Fem tells him to wait a moment, and then Alfred senses a powerful presence right before a massive monster erupts from underground, leaving both of them staring in disbelief, as Fem admits that this is the monster he couldn't defeat. Alfred surprises him by looking genuinely excited, explaining that while he avoids murdering when he can, this thing is far too big to spare, and the wasteland is proof it has eaten everything in range, and if left alone, it will destroy the whole forest. When Alfred approaches, the beast suddenly opens its jaws and releases a foul, rotting stench, forcing both Alfred and Fem to run as Alfred asks what that disgusting breath is, and Fem explains it's a decaying roar, meaning the breath itself is poisonous, which makes Alfred yell at him for not warning him sooner since they could have died. As they circle the monster, dodging its poisonous breath, Alfred decides he can't let this creature live, gathers magic into his hand, and stretches his palm toward the monster while saying it's fine to get a little serious, and then unleashes a massive explosion that slams into the beast. Fem asks if he ended it, and Alfred tells him not to make it sound so sinister, while feeling relieved he managed to finish it without damaging the surrounding area, and as the monster falls in a single blast. Alfred wonders if the villagers can even eat this thing after that rotten breath, but Fem assures him the meat is safe, saying it's like a venomous snake whose venom doesn't taint the meat, and Alfred realizes that makes sense. Soon after, more wolves appear, and Fem introduces them as his pack while Alfred looks at their skinny bodies and guesses they all came hoping for meat. So he cuts off a few portions for himself and tells Fem to take the rest, making Fem howl in delight, as the pack starts celebrating around the fallen boar. Alfred feels good knowing he fulfilled Fem's request and later returns to the village, where everyone is ecstatic at the sight of all the meat, and he even helps divide it among the families. The mayor is stunned when Alfred hands him one of the giant tusks, and Meiert keeps hyping him up, already impressed beyond measure, before inviting him to dinner, which Alfred gladly accepts since he also intends to check on her sick sister. At her house, he meets Collet, who immediately calls him an uncle, which embarrasses him because it's not even wrong. And Meiert thanks him again for gathering the herbs that saved her sister while they leave Collet to rest until dinner is ready. Collet meets Fem and instantly falls in love with how soft and cute he is. And when Alfred prepares to leave, she thanks him, tells him to lean in, then suddenly kisses him as a gift of gratitude, making him a red tomato. She then asks whether he has feelings for her sister, and when Alfred gets nervous and can't answer, she tells him that Meiert is an amazing woman who does all the housework, became a herbalist after their father died, takes care of her, and has plenty of admirers wanting to marry her, and Alfred quietly wonders just how popular Meiert actually is. Collet says Meiert always blushes and gets happy when she talks about Alfred, so he should marry her and at least consider the idea, and she declares it their shared secret just as Meiert walks in, asking what they're whispering about, but Collet smoothly covers it up. Later, they enjoy dinner together, and Alfred finds the food delicious, while Meiert blushes, and Collet nearly jumps out of her seat when she learns how massive the boar was. Alfred casually adds that normally they'd need a whole team of guardsmen to deal with something that huge, and Meiert says animals have been causing more trouble lately, but she's never heard of a boar that size before and finds it terrifying. Fem cuts in and tells them to relax since now that the giant boar is gone, he and his pack will take care of the smaller ones, so they won't bother humans anymore. And Collet happily hugs him, while Meiert says she feels satisfied knowing everything will be fine as long as Alfred and Fem are there to protect them, and Alfred simply tells her to leave it to him. With both the demon wolves and demon boars no longer a threat, Alfred decides that tomorrow he'll head to the hot springs and finally relax for a while. Back at his guard station, Alfred sits around yawning since he picked this job specifically because it is easy and peaceful, and with no threats appearing lately, he actually has too much free time. And he glances at Fem resting beside him and laughs at how carefree the wolf has become too, then thinks back to how that massive fatso boar had been troubling everyone including Fem, and how it simply grew huge without anyone noticing because the whole region is so isolated. But the panicked state of the demon wolves still feels odd to him, making him wonder if the boar had been affected by some kind of curse or magic that forces giant growth onto magical beasts. Later that night, while Alfred and Fem are resting in his room, Fem suddenly senses someone approaching from the forest and warns him. And since Fem's perception abilities are miles ahead of any human, Alfred immediately takes it seriously, wondering who it could be at this hour, so he steps outside, and although he senses no bloodlust, he still finds it strange for someone to be wandering around this area so late. And then a woman steps out of the shadows and confirms his identity. He stares at her in surprise as she introduces herself as Vivy, one of the elite 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King's army, and even though Alfred tries to recall her, he completely draws a blank. And even after hearing her name, he still can't place her, even though he remembers clearly that his hero party defeated the Elite 4, and that the Elite 4 actually has 5 members. And when he looks closely, he realizes she is indeed a demon, but just some cringy, ordinary demon who convinced herself she belongs among the 4. He asks what she wants, and she immediately fumes, telling him not to play dumb, which irritates him as he tries to remember what he might have done. Until she yells that he slaughtered the boar she hand-raised, and demands to know how he dared. And Alfred shouts right back saying he should be the one angry since she threw the entire ecosystem out of balance by making that boar massive and terrifying everyone. But Vivy simply raises her hand and declares she doesn't care about humans and tells him to die. Alfred instantly realizes she is chanting a long and drawn-out spell, and with a huge amount of magical energy swelling around her, he expects nothing less from a demon, but he still can't believe she is foolish enough to chant right in front of him, proving she is inexperienced. He stomps on the ground, tells her to brace herself, and rushes toward her, and the next moment she is slammed into the dirt, shocked as she realizes Alfred is a wizard and that stopping a spell chant is basic for him. He grabs her and scolds her for bothering everyone with her nonsense, trying to beat some sense into her, and she trembles before launching a small fireball at him, which he dodges easily, but the blast hits the roof of his cabin instead, and Alfred freezes as this gremlin just turned his house into an open-air concept home. He thinks he should put out the flames with water magic and then turns to Vivy, threatening that she will not get away so easily, and she panics, insisting it was an accident, but Femme suddenly bites her leg, and she screams while Alfred isn't surprised at all, letting her regret every second of this mess until he tells Femme to stop. He orders the sobbing Vivy to hold out her hands, ties them with magic, blindfolds her, and drags her back into the ruined cabin. Inside, Vivy is tied up and blindfolded, completely terrified, screaming like he is some gangster kidnapping a girl and begging him not to touch her soul, even if he touches her body, while Alfred is only thinking about his roof. She then starts acting proud, imagining that he is staring at her hot body, and before she gets carried away, Alfred smacks her head, and she cries dramatically, refusing to believe she could ever be disgraced by a trashy human, yet somehow convinced she has already lost. Femme watches her with judgment, clearly thinking she is a weirdo, and Alfred knows she is going to be nothing but trouble. He finally removes her blindfold and tells her to calm down because he isn't planning to moist her down, but she keeps screaming. He decides he will fix the roof tomorrow, but right now he has no choice but to interrogate her to force her to explain her goal, and she starts taunting him, acting mysterious as she hints at her big plan, bragging that the demon boar was only practice, and that her real intention is to enlarge a dragon, saying the boars are perfect food while she rears the dragon and calling it killing two birds with one stone. Alfred immediately labels her a moron for revealing everything like a child, but still admits the plan is terrifying if she actually manages to raise a giant dragon, and he casually asks if her goal afterwards is to rebuild the demon army, which makes Vivy panic as she asks how he knows that, completely exposing her stupidity. He questions her about the technique since enlarging a creature to that size requires more than average magic, and he tricks her by praising the massive boar, making her puff up proudly as she says he has a surprisingly good eye for a lowly animal, and Alfred realizes she really is dumb enough to spill everything. She proudly explains the whole thing and says she etched the magic at the bottom of the bog, calling it flawless, and Alfred is shocked he didn't notice because the concealment spell she used must have been high level, meaning she might actually be a better witch than he first assumed, even if she is unbearably annoying. He stands up, tells her that tomorrow they will go and erase the magic circle, and after that she will fix his roof, while she tries to mumble some protest until Femme growls at her, and she immediately agrees. The next morning, he explains everything to the villagers and the mayor, who all turn, but Alfred reassures them he will take care of the problem, and they cheer for him, praising him for capturing such a powerful demon. The mayor calls him the champion of the village and says it is a big deal, and Alfred accepts the compliments while feeling shy. Myert arrives soon after, and Vivy immediately starts showing off her demon nature, but Alfred tells Myert he has her on a leash, so she doesn't need to worry, and Myert instead worries about Alfred, asking if he got hurt fighting such a crazy demon, but he quickly reassures her. He knows the Elite Four title is just Vivy bragging, but Myert is grateful to him for protecting everyone, and when Alfred notices the way she blushes, he finally realizes her feelings. Later, he heads out with Femme and the demon witch, and the mayor suddenly requests that Myert accompany them as an overseer, which flusters Alfred since the man is practically sending them on a honeymoon, while Myert shyly asks if she can really be helpful, and Alfred vows to protect her as Colette excitedly wishes her sister luck. They set off riding on Femme, Myert happily enjoying the ride while Vivy trembles in terror since her traumatic memory of Femme makes her believe he is just waiting for a chance to gulp her down. And as soon as Alfred smells something unusual, Vivy declares they have arrived. As the rotten stench hits them, Myert wonders how Alfred even managed to defeat a boar that expelled such disgusting poison, while Femme is already whining because he can't cover his own nose. And Alfred ends up pressing his palm over Femme's snout, since there's no other choice. But Vivy keeps taunting them for bearing the smell and proudly says she stumbled across a toxic demon boar at the end of her search, and placed it inside a magic circle. Alfred notices the bog has gotten smaller as Meyert examines a giant lobster-looking creature over the water, although he thinks it's probably just a crayfish, finding the whole thing strange, and he immediately senses the lingering influence of the magic circle. Vivy chuckles that they finally figured it out as the energy that the circle pumped into the demon boar has now spread throughout the area. And Alfred says that if all these animals are the result of the magic, then the only solution is to get rid of the circle entirely, while Vivy grins and mocks them because it's buried under the mud and impossible to erase. Suddenly, Alfred assigns her the responsibility anyway and orders her to erase it, and she cries at how absurd it is that she's being forced to scoop mud. But one growl from Femme shuts her up, and she immediately starts digging while loudly complaining about her miserable luck. Meyert feels a little sorry for her, but Alfred thinks Vivy is simply facing the consequences of her own stupidity because the village could have been destroyed if she messed up even more. And when he sees her barely making progress, he casually tells her that if she calls herself a witch, then she should be using magic instead of her hands. In the next instant, Alfred's palms begin to glow, surprising everyone as he lifts all the mud with magic, and then uses gravity magic to make it float high above them in a swirling mud tornado. And while Vivy panics, he orders her to erase the magic circle quickly, and warns that if she tries anything, he will drop the whole tornado right on her. She rushes to erase it and finally yells that she's done, and Alfred thanks her before putting everything back exactly where it was, while Vivy glares at him, stunned that only the Demon King was supposed to be able to use gravity magic, especially combined with another element, since that kind of thing should normally cause an explosion. She's even more shocked when Alfred says using 2 elements is nothing for him, and that he can use 4 at once, bragging casually that he can keep it up for an entire hour, leaving Vivy trembling as he turns to head home. Meyert watches the crayfish turn back to its normal size and marvels at how amazing magic is, while Alfred tells her she can take it along if it's edible, and Vivy keeps grumbling about being covered in mud. Meyert says they all need a proper shower once they get back, then flusters and clarifies that she meant separate baths, and Alfred suddenly remembers how he originally came to Mulg village for the hot springs anyway, so he figures it would only be right to accept her offer. Back at the village, Alfred parts from Meyert and the others after promising to join them for dinner, and the mayor then tells him about a great bathhouse. So when Alfred arrives, he is amazed to find the entire hot bath reserved just for him and Femme. And even though the mayor says he can use the smaller ones on the outskirts if he prefers, Alfred is already impressed by this luxurious place. He prepares to enter and tells Femme to wait outside, but Femme also wants to join him. So Alfred gives him a warning not to make a mess inside, and then finally gets ready, feeling excited since it has been so long since he last soaked in a hot spring. After washing himself and Femme thoroughly, they step into the water together and relax, and Alfred asks how Femme can enjoy the bath when normal dogs and wolves hate it. But Femme calmly says he isn't mere wolf, and Alfred sinks deeper into the warmth, feeling incredible until the heat makes him dizzy, and he climbs out while Femme still wants to soak a bit longer. Just as Alfred is about to leave, he hears girls chatting at the entrance, and his face drains as he realizes they are coming in, overhearing Meyert telling Vivy to wash properly while Colette follows behind them. So he immediately hides behind a large boulder and Femme stares at him in confusion. Alfred tries to tune out the girl talk while Meyert keeps convincing Vivy to get into the water, and Colette giggles happily. But as soon as Vivy notices Meyert's large lemons, she becomes mesmerized since seeing such beauty on an elf shocks her, and she grabs her saying she wants to squeeze them. As Vivy starts squishing her, Meyert flusters and tries to stop her while Colette scolds Vivy not to play with her sister's lemons, and Alfred struggles not to look, turning red like a tomato, which Femme notices, but he quickly blames it on dizziness. Then Colette suddenly spots them and shouts that Uncle Alfred and Femme are there, and the situation becomes even funnier when Vivy starts yelling at him for daring to peek at their hot bodies, calling him pathetic and warning him of death while Meyert looks disappointed. And before Alfred can explain, Vivy hurls a basket at his head, knocking out most of his memory of the moment. Sometime later, Meyert sighs in relief seeing him regain consciousness while Vivy keeps taunting him as a creepy idiot, and Alfred rubs his head trying to remember what happened, feeling deeply embarrassed about the whole mess as he thanks Meyert for taking care of him. Vivy then demands to know why he even went inside since the bath was reserved for them. And Alfred explains the mayor recommended this place, only for Myatt to say Colette told them the mayor also recommended it to the girls. And right then Colette shows up smiling proudly, as she admits she decided they should all use it together like some kind of innocent harem bath for Alfred, making the girls freeze in flustered shock as they realize the entire chaos was this girl. Alfred then suddenly notices he is already dressed and wonders when his clothes were put on. And while Myatt heads off to bring water, Colette leans in to whisper that her sister is the one who helped him into his pants, leaving him holding his head in embarrassment as he thinks he really owes Myatt one. They finally leave the bathhouse to head home for dinner. Colette waves him goodbye, and Alfred listens to the girls chatting as they walk ahead, feeling calm while sitting beside Femme and thinking that living among such kind villagers and protecting them like this is actually a pretty nice life. Later, the village mayor discusses what they should do with Vivy and casually decides Alfred will be responsible for her from now on, which makes Alfred think that even an ordinary demon is still a demon, and if he takes her lightly, she'll definitely cause trouble. So he suggests handing her over to the feudal lord, only for the mayor to explain that the feudal lord despises demons to the point that she would be executed on sight. And hearing that, Alfred reluctantly agrees to keep her under his watch and make her work for the village so she earns her keep rather than causing chaos. Back at his house, he tells Vivy she isn't getting lunch until she does some work, assigning her to repair the roof she herself set on fire, and she irritably climbs up to fix it while complaining about every little thing. Myatt also says she needs to leave for work, and when Alfred asks, she explains she takes care of the village cows, which impresses him because she works seriously and tirelessly. But before he can say anything more, Colette jumps in teasing that her sister is the perfect wifey material, and even Alfred can't deny that helping him and handling Vivy without complaining is totally her type. Though Alfred keeps thinking someone as pretty as Myatt probably dislikes an old guy like him. Colette then suddenly suggests that if Vivy uses her magic circle to enlarge all the cows, they'll have a huge amount of meat, and Alfred hesitates while Vivy immediately claims that such a spell is incredibly easy for her, which makes Colette cheer proudly, telling them to try it out in the evening, but Vivy starts panicking since she's a slacker and hates extra work, insisting she is a high-class demon who should be served, calling Alfred a lowly trash for expecting labor from her. And right then Femme growls and threatening, making Vivy instantly reverse her attitude and mutter that she can compromise just a little. Later, once Vivy finishes the rooftop, Alfred actually compliments her, saying this clumsy girl did a surprisingly good job and tells her to take a short break before they head to the farm. When they arrive, Myatt greets them and shows that the cows are ready, and Alfred tells Vivy to go ahead and create the magic circle, but she tries to protest again, complaining about wasting magic on low-rank animals. So Alfred pretends he'll let Femme handle her, then uses a different trick by saying if she can't do something this simple then her job ends here, and he overestimated her, which provokes Vivy instantly as she screeches that she can obviously do it, so they should just stand back and watch. Alfred watches her set up the circle and thinks it's way too easy to rile her up, while Vivy starts explaining that the outer ring of the magic circle is the most important part, and although many spells can be invoked at once, the foundation is in the correct movements, and there is a refined art to making it properly, and Myatt finds it incredibly exciting, which Alfred admits is understandable as they both watch Vivy work. Once she declares the circle finished and the glowing lines spread across the ground, Alfred praises her magic control as spectacular, and Vivy becomes excited, saying this should make the cows twice as big, while Myatt happily compliments her again before saying she needs to get back to her own tasks, and Alfred insists on helping since they can't just leave without doing anything now, which makes Myatt smile warmly, while Vivy, exhausted and dramatic, starts whining that she already worked so much today. Myatt assigns them to break up straw for feed and distribute it to the cows, and once fed, the cows munch happily while Vivy stares in surprise at how satisfying it looks, and afterwards Myatt thanks all of them for helping her today. Back at Alfred's cabin, Vivy is starving and starts annoying him and Femme as they both sit slumped with exhaustion, and Alfred, who hates cooking, suggests they just stuff themselves with jerky because it's easier, already chewing on some himself, but Vivy refuses, yelling that he can't fool her with dried meat for dinner. Right at that moment, Myert arrives with Collet, bringing dinner for them and apologizing for keeping them waiting. Vivy and Fem both get excited seeing the food, while Vivy tells Alfred to keep enjoying his jerky. But then Myert casually mentions that she actually has enough food for everyone. Soon they all sit together and enjoy the meal as Alfred realizes that the Mulg village beef stew tastes insanely good. So he thanks Myert for it, and she happily accepts it while saying she loves cooking anyway, and Vivy, already smiling with her cheeks full, asks for a second plate, which makes Alfred ask for one too, and she instantly teases him by saying she's generous toward lowly people like him. So they all end up joking around while Alfred thinks he has a good job, eats delicious meals, and laughs with girls, and that kind of ordinary life genuinely makes him happy. Later, after the dishes are done, Myert and Collet leave Alfred's cabin saying they'll come again tomorrow, and Alfred tells Fem they should sleep now, only to immediately realize his bed is definitely going to be covered in fur. And then Vivy starts mumbling in annoyance because she doesn't like the idea of sleeping on the floor, so Alfred excuses, but she suddenly rushes to jump into his bed anyway, forcing Alfred to block her as he reminds her that it's his bed, which annoys her enough that she just throws him down and tells him to sleep in a pit instead. So Alfred suggests making an arrangement and splitting the space. But Vivy, as usual, gets distracted by her own freaky thoughts, acting like he's planning to make her wet down there, which he denies immediately, and in the end they sleep in opposite directions. The next morning, the agreement is already broken because Vivy ends up sleeping right beside Alfred like some romantic girlfriend, while Fem sleeps quietly in the corner. And meanwhile, on the farm, the magic calmly continues working on the cow. Myert and Vivy have lately been trying their hardest to take care of the cows, while Alfred keeps the wildlife damage under control and continues his guard duty day in and day out. And now that he finally gets some free time, he feels relieved, especially because he knows staying like this is better for his knee. But he snaps out of his thoughts when the village mayor approaches him and informs him about a cow that has suddenly become huge, which confuses Alfred because he does remember setting up magical circles for growth, but never to this extent. So he rushes with the mayor to see it and immediately realizes how bad the situation is as the massive cow runs around and causes destruction while everyone panics and Myert tries to help the other cows escape. And Alfred calls out to her, telling her to get back and protect herself, as she also wonders how the cow got so gigantic. Alfred then asks Vivy about it, and she casually explains that while she has been taking care of the cow these past 3 days, she made further improvements to the magic circles, even grinning proudly, as she says this is exactly what they should expect from a cow raised by her, which makes Alfred remind her to show at least some restraint, while Fem also stands stunned, wondering what they should even do in this situation. So Alfred decides the only realistic solution is to turn the cow into meat. But the mayor explains they had planned to sell it next month and need to take it alive to town, because if they butcher it now, the meat will spoil before arriving. Which makes Alfred come up with the idea to dry the meat using a mixture of magic and storage techniques, and the mayor immediately approves. Vivy, however, doesn't like this idea at all as the cow keeps licking her hands and eating from her palms, and she remembers all the moments she shared with it. So when Alfred steps forward to put it down, she panics and shields the cow, insisting Mufi hasn't done anything wrong. Alfred is surprised. She already gave it a proper name, while she continues cursing him for planning to end her Mufi and asking how he can even think of eating it. So Alfred tries to convince her that keeping a giant Mufi wandering around will cause food shortages and destroy the village if it keeps rolling around. And Myert steps in as well, telling Vivy that Mufi was going to be sold soon anyway, and that none of this is the cow's fault. Vivy still feels guilty and apologizes to Mufi for turning her too big, but Alfred reminds her he is the one who told her to enlarge it, so she shouldn't blame herself. And after a moment, she finally gives in and tells Alfred to at least make it quick so Mufi doesn't suffer. And Alfred prepares himself, draws his spear, and strikes cleanly through its vitals using a magical thrust. Then has the villagers quickly drain the blood and disassemble the cow, while he uses explosive magic to dig a large pit and convert the soil into a storage medium, creating a makeshift magical bag with increased capacity despite its unchanged exterior. And soon the villagers fill it with processed meat and solidified soil until the mayor is satisfied that it will last a whole year. While Alfred tells everyone not to worry because it is now properly preserved, and the villagers celebrate him while Vivy watches sadly from Mufi's improvised grave, wishing the cow a peaceful rest. Later that night, the villagers barbecue the meat and enjoy drinks, and Alfred also eats the delicious beef until he remembers something and asks the chief for vegetables and juice before approaching Vivy to tell her to eat something. But she refuses, saying she isn't in the mood, until Meyert steps in saying she's missing something delicious, and Collet explains that everyone eats living things to survive, which is what Meyert told her earlier. Though Vivy still looks sad until Meyert gently tells her that if Mufi has turned into food like this, then it's their responsibility not to waste any part of her. Finally convinced, Vivy tries the meat and finds it delicious, thanking Mufi for such a good meal. And later that night, when she and Alfred share the bed again, he notices her quiet tears for Mufi and wipes them away, assuring her before they fall asleep. The next morning, Vivy wakes him up, saying there's work again, while Alfred grumbles at her. And Meyert comes in with breakfast and checks if Vivy is feeling better, joking that the 4 elite kings of demons must be fully recovered after a good night's sleep. After breakfast, the mayor arrives with a request, explaining that since they have so much beef after yesterday, he intends to go to town tomorrow to sell it. But there are rumors of bandits showing up lately, so he wants Alfred to escort them. And Alfred asks whether they normally sell to merchants who visit the village. But the mayor explains the next merchant won't arrive for another month, and they simply have too much to store, while he also worries Alfred might be exhausted after using so much magic yesterday. Though Alfred reassures him he'll handle it, and Meyert also worries about his knee, but Alfred insists he is fine, as he understands the mayor's urgency to monetize the cow at this time of year. He then tells Vivy to get ready since they need to make several magical bags, and Vivy walks out while Alfred apologizes to Meyert for not finishing the dishes. Then starts by having the skin from the gigantic cow split into pieces, and uses magic to control thread and needle, sewing large bags while explaining that Vivy will use in large capacity in constant state to carry the raw meat while he, traveling by coach, will need constant mass, and Meyert watches in surprise because the magic looks difficult. Vivy draws her magic circle and completes it shortly after, impressing Alfred with the quality of her magic, while Vivy says it's only because her dear Alfred's makeshift circles make everything easier for her. And when Meyert notices Vivy calling Alfred dear instead of lowly or trashy, she becomes suspicious, and Vivy flusters saying she isn't implying anything strange, while Meyert still feels like Vivy is somehow fooling her. And Alfred realizes that through all their shared troubles and daily chaos, Vivy has naturally become a true resident of Mulg village. At sunrise, they begin an 8-hour journey toward the large town to sell Mufi's meat, and the passengers consist of Fem and Alfred as escorts, Meyert handling the sales, and Vivy and Collet acting as attendants, while the others relax in the back and Meyert takes the reins. And when Alfred asks if she is tired and wants him to switch with her, she simply says she is fine, which makes Collet tease that her sister is a complete workaholic, and Alfred, remembering the scene before departure, realizes that despite her young age, Meyert is honest, wise, and trusted so deeply by both the chief and the villagers that she is already responsible for representing the entire village, and he even thinks she might end up becoming the next village mayor. Vivy then lies down on Alfred's lap, and he casually complains that she is heavy, but when he jokingly warns her about Fem, she panics as Fem, and he starts teasing her until Meyert tells them to stop fooling around. Yet before the banter ends, Fem senses something and Alfred feels it too, so he immediately orders Fem to watch their rear. And the moment the tension peaks, an arrow flies straight toward Meyert on the driver's seat, but Alfred deflects it instantly and orders her to get inside the carriage. He quickly recognizes the tactic as the typical bandit method of taking down the coachman, stealing the horse and wagon, and blocking the road with logs so escape becomes impossible. And seeing how well coordinated the attackers are, he steps down just as the bandit leader demands they surrender the cargo and the horse, promising to spare them if they comply. But Alfred cuts him off, saying people who obey bandits die anyway, and the bandit argues that people are valuable commodities who can be sold as slaves, which makes Meyert and Vivy tense up, while Alfred casually announces that he has no intention of being captured by a bunch of thieves or letting them run away, declaring that he'll beat the shit out of them, so they should hurry up and come at him, angering the boss, who orders his men to finish Alfred. Though Alfred simply thinks they are too slow and guesses that is natural for ordinary bandits, even though he never looks forward to fighting. In the next moment, Alfred uses his magic to fling the entire group of bandits into a pile, and their boss still tries to threaten him and prepare the archers. But before he can even finish the command, Fem is already on him, biting down, and Alfred knows arrows are useless because he can sense their trajectory long before they reach him. So he uses his magic to snatch up ropes and tie all the bandits together, wrapping the situation up in minutes before finally asking Fem if he senses anyone else. And once Fem confirms all threats are finished, Alfred tells him to gather the defeated bandits, while the girls inside the carriage laugh in relief at his easy victory. He notices Vivy already preparing to protect everyone with an extremely precise arrow-warding magic circle, but he tells her she doesn't need that level of accuracy in battle, though she argues misfires will happen otherwise. And he clarifies that as long as she maintains around 70% activation, she can cast it safely. And when he sees how overwhelmingly meticulous her circles are, he wonders how wandering sorcerers manage without chanting. Feeling impressed despite himself, Fem returns after turning in the captured bandits, and they continue their journey with Alfred riding the carriage and saying he will escort them carefully since things got dangerous earlier, making Meyert blush because she feels like he saved her yet again. And soon after, they reach a beautiful lookout before Alfred announces that the town is finally ahead. Upon entering the town, Alfred immediately hands the captured bandits over to the sentries and receives a sizable bounty in return, which he brings back to the group and announces they will enjoy a good meal today. Meanwhile, Vivy comments that the huge town feels like it is swarming with inferior beings, and Alfred warns her to cover up properly so her demon identity doesn't get exposed, forcing her to comply even though she hates that the local feudal lord despises demons, and he also warns Fem to behave like a cute puppy for safety's sake. Later, they then spot the meat shop, and Alfred says he and Meyert will go negotiate the sale, while the others wait nearby in case anything happens. So Meyert begins confidently listing every strength of Mulg village's beef and easily convinces the butcher, who examines the meat and shows interest but hesitates, worrying whether the magic used for preservation might fail since it came from some small village sorcerer, which makes Alfred laugh as he pulls the man aside and shows his certificate of magical authenticity, causing the man to nearly lose his composure when he realizes Alfred is a former member of the hero party. And Alfred knows that adventurer cards cannot be forged, so the proof carries absolute credibility. Meyert briefly panics, thinking the negotiation might fall apart, but Alfred calmly tells her that verifying magic effects is part of a sorcerer's job. And moments later, the butcher hands over a massive payment that leaves the whole group astonished. As the sun sets after the transaction, the butcher suddenly requests Alfred's autograph for his son, who is a big fan, making Alfred feel like a celebrity while Vivy gets irritated and jealous, demanding they stop wasting time. And after wrapping things up, they step back out into the lively town, where Khalid excitedly suggests wandering around the castle district. The girls melt at the sight of food stalls, and Alfred ends up buying tacos for everyone, adding one extra for Fem when he mutters for it. And they all enjoy the delicious food together, with Fem losing his mind over the taste before moving to the next stall. And once everyone is full and satisfied, Alfred leads them to the inn he booked, choosing a slightly expensive one since they are lodging with Fem. But when they enter the room, they freeze at the sight of only 2 beds, and Alfred, being the shameless uncle, asks if the girls are all planning to sleep together in the same room with him, while Meyert, flustered but polite, says that since it's an expensive inn, they shouldn't complain too much about sharing the space. Vivy is already used to everything and instantly strolls onto the bed, casually announcing that she usually shares the same bed with Alfred, which shocks Meyert and instantly sparks her jealousy as she wonders why they sleep together. And the poor Flurchai Alfred immediately realizes this is going to be a huge problem, because an old guy like him sleeping in the same room with a girl who's ripe for marriage is obviously going to create misunderstandings. But Meyert keeps tearing up over the idea that Alfred used to sleep with someone who isn't her, and Alfred desperately tries to defend himself by saying that Fem always sleeps in between them, which only annoys Meyert that it's a dog, since Fem keeps insisting he isn't some dog but a proud wolf, while Vivy, being her usual stubborn, haughty self, tells Fem to go sleep with Meyert and Colette instead. But the girls instantly refuse and start bickering again because they want to sleep near Alfred since there's no hotter guy around, and apparently this old geezer has become their entire world. In the end, Alfred notices how chaotic the whole situation is going, so he declares that he'll sleep on the floor, but that only creates new problems for Meyert. Eventually, he ends up sharing the bed with Colette and Fem, while Colette happily melts into sleep, hugging the forever fluffy wolf, and Alfred tries to sleep through the non-stop banter coming from Vivy and Meyert fighting on the other bed. Meyert complains that Vivy is hogging more than half the bed, while Vivy arrogantly insists that trashy humans should never complain about sharing space with her. And sometime later, when Alfred wakes up in the middle of the night, he notices Meyert sleeping right next to him, pressed so close that the sight almost stops his heartbeat, and he assumes she probably got up half asleep for the bathroom and ended up in the wrong bed, especially since she keeps mumbling his name while clinging to his arm. By morning, the chaos begins again as the ever-troublesome Vivy wakes up, looks over, and screams after seeing Meyert curled up near Alfred, accusing her of sneaking into a guy's bed at night. While Meyert tries explaining she didn't realize it, but Vivy keeps calling her a liar until Meyert gets dizzy again and plops back onto the bed half asleep. But jealous Vivy shakes her violently, snatching her pillow and yelling that they have tons of work to do, while Colette is still enjoying her peaceful sleep snuggled up beside her favorite uncle. For various reasons, they leave the inn altogether and decide to go shopping in the town today. And even though Meyert has her own list to handle from the mayor, she takes it on while the others stick around Alfred. Realizing what the girls want, Alfred hands them some coins and tells them to go enjoy the street stalls while he handles other errands, and the girls cheerfully run off to munch on everything they can find. Later, everyone gathers again and loads their shopping into the carriage, with Meyert happy that she had such a fun experience this time, and Alfred agreeing that he actually enjoyed himself too, and they head out of town. As they travel, Alfred feels the quiet road home settle peacefully into his chest, and when he finally sees the village, he feels a sense of relief and an unexpected happiness that they are back. And he realizes that after years of wandering as an adventurer, he had forgotten what the feeling of coming home even felt like. Yet somehow in this short time, he has grown attached to Mulg village. Back there, he unloads everything, and the villagers happily greet them, thanking him again for the cow meat, while Vivy silently fumes seeing this shameless get all the credit. And then the mayor praises Alfred for how he handled the bandits. The mayor tells Alfred to rest today, and the very first thing that pops into Alfred's mind is the hot springs. So this time he asks the mayor to recommend some other nice bathhouses. They head to the hot spring to recover from their long journey, and Vivy keeps bragging that the only good thing about this stupid countryside is the ridiculous number of hot springs. While Alfred feels excited too, because soaking every day would probably help his knee recuperate. And when they arrive, Meyert tells him to go in first since girls usually take longer. But Vivy is practically dying to rush in first like a feral cat. Alfred finally enters with Fem because he has to wash him as well, and the place turns out to be small but surprisingly cozy, just the kind of quiet, isolated spring he's been hoping for. And with the weather feeling perfect, he sets up a barrier to avoid being ambushed by the girls again, then starts washing Fem while bringing up something that's been on his mind lately, which is whether Fem's intelligence has been dropping since he keeps acting more dog-like every day. Fem finds the comment rude, but Alfred pushes on, saying it's strange that Fem hasn't shaken off that doggy aura and keeps making weird bark-like sounds. And Fem simply replies that humans can't understand him because they rely on that frail little thing called spoken language. So Alfred sarcastically asks, if Fem wants them to wag their tails instead of speaking. And Fem tells him there are countless other forms of communication, calling Alfred a newbie, while Alfred wonders why Fem suddenly became so impertinent today. He moves closer to wash the leftover bubbles off Fem, who casually calls Alfred blind to his own stupidity. But before their banter goes further, Alfred hears the girls' voices approaching. And first Colette calls out Uncle Alfred while Vivy barges in right behind her, immediately yelling at him not to stare at her flat-chested body, which he shows zero interest in, causing her to grow jealous as she declares she's a high-class demon who won't tolerate trash like him staring anyway. Then Meyert walks in with her massive plots bouncing, and Vivy suddenly remembers Meyert wanted to thank Alfred, while Alfred freezes with his mouth half open as he stares at Meyert's beautiful hot figure, and she leans in with a fluster-inducing smile offering to wash his back, leaving him looking desperately toward Fem for help, who is very conveniently pretending not to notice anything while soaking in the spring. Meyert begins washing Alfred's back gently and comments on the scars covering him, leading him to explain that they come from his adventuring days, while Vivy, jealous as always, snarks that scars on the back are the mark of a cowardly knight, which Alfred denies since he was never a knight anyway. Once Vivy finishes washing Colette, she runs toward Fem, and Meyert tells Alfred to wash his front too, which makes him panic as she touches his chest with her chilly fingers, making him feel dangerously close to losing control of his own sausage. So he covers himself quickly and says he can wash that part alone. But Vivy, the ever-annoying third wheel, steps in demanding he wash her back instead, and jealous Meyert instantly intervenes, telling Vivy she will help wash her instead, saving Alfred from disaster as he quietly escapes into the water to relax, looking up and feeling as though the open sky is pouring healing straight into his knee. Colette calls out Uncle and joins him, asking about his knee, and he tries hiding the pain, but she gently starts massaging it. Alfred recalls an old former adventurer in a bar telling him that joints start hurting when the weather worsens, and he feels the same stiffness now, realizing that though he can live an ordinary life comfortably, he couldn't handle adventurer work anymore because even someone like him, who can read the weaknesses of intelligent enemies, could become a liability in battle. And he also remembers how adventurers rarely get a chance to rest like this. Colette soon gets out of the water, complaining it's hot, and Alfred follows, wanting to act like a gentleman after all the special treatment, telling the girls to take their time soaking while he watches over Colette and Fem, and Meyert thanks him softly. Later, Meyert tells Alfred and Colette she'll call them when dinner is ready, and Alfred heads to the mayor, who asks how they're settling in before bringing up a request for Vivy. Curious, Vivy listens as the mayor explains that they want her enlargement magic for the cows again, but this time only a gentle 2 times growth and not that cursed improved Moofy version. And before she answers, Alfred immediately apologizes on Vivy's behalf, saying she's still depressed about the previous incident, but Vivy gets confused why Alfred is refusing for her. Trying to act cool, she jumps in saying it's no problem at all, but Alfred stops her and tells her not to force herself. Yet she dramatically strikes a heroic pose, announcing that she is the Demon Queen, a skilled sorcerer and a genius. Alfred watches her acting like a weirdo and wonders why he was even worried, so he tells her that if she's fine with it, then go ahead, and Vivy insists he should observe for future reference, and Alfred agrees to study it while Vivy chuckles proudly. The next day he goes to the farm with Vivy and Fem to begin the work, and when Meyert asks if Vivy is fine, the demon girl confidently flexes as she begins her magic, and Alfred realizes she seems to have finally come to terms with the Moofy disaster, feeling relieved as he sees her smiling again, and he thinks maybe they're finally settling back into a peaceful, ordinary life. A short while has passed since Alfred becomes the guard of Mulg village, and most village problems have been handled now, giving him enough free time to laze around the guard station, where he ends up playing with Fem and annoying Vivy. And when he watches Fem happily chase a ball around, he guesses the dog instincts are kicking in again, which Vivy also agrees with since Fem is, at the end of the day, nothing more than a wild dog in her eyes. She shows Alfred a magic circle she's been working on, and he admits it actually looks pretty skillful. But before they can talk more, Fem wedges himself between them and irritates Vivy all over again, clinging to her and making her snap that she'll end up reeking like dog. while Alfred simply watches them with a relaxed smile, feeling oddly satisfied with how peaceful his life has become. Later that night, while Alfred is lying in his cabin with Vivy asleep nearby, he feels Fem moving restlessly and asks if he needs to go outside to relieve himself. But Fem says he was called and asks if Alfred heard it too, the distant howls of his brethren. And when Alfred admits he can't hear anything, Fem explains that something seems wrong and requests a short leave. Alfred lights a torch and walks him outside, offering help if needed. But Fem says the sentiment alone is enough because this matter is his duty as the king, and then transforms back into his original massive form, leaving Alfred stunned again since it still feels like an eternity every time he sees this version. Fem promises to return by tomorrow's dinner, and Alfred remembers how thin and timid Fem looked when they first met, compared to the fearless, powerful wolf standing before him now. And before leaving, Fem licks him affectionately, not wanting to turn his back on his master, until Alfred calms him down and lets him go as the wolf disappears into the forest. Back in the cabin, Alfred lies down again beside the sleeping Vivy and thinks about how the magical wolves have already matured, which is why Fem once said it was fine to leave them to their own devices. But since he was summoned now, something serious must have happened, and Alfred worries whether Fem will be able to handle it alone. His thoughts spiral until he imagines Fem struggling somewhere, and suddenly Vivy yells at him and wakes him up, complaining that he was moaning like he was trapped in some nightmare, which he admits is true since it was unpleasant, and she calls it typical of trashy humans before asking about the puppy. Alfred tells her Fem has been summoned by his pack, and he notices she actually looks sad about it, which surprises him because he expected her to be thrilled. He later has breakfast with Myert and the others before going to his guard post like usual, where he sits quietly, lost in thought, until Vivy, who is drawing magic circles beside him, notices he's missing Fem and tries to reassure him that Fem promised to return by dinner. She even shows him a magic circle she made to prevent nightmares and teases that she should draw it on his forehead, while the day drags on slowly until sunset, when Alfred begins worrying again. When he returns home, Myert, practicing a good waifu, tells him dinner is ready, and he thanks her while Collet asks about Fem, so Alfred covers it up by saying Fem is just busy somewhere, hoping the wolf isn't actually in danger. He reminds himself that Fem is the magical wolf king, so surely he'll be fine, and after eating the delicious meal that Myert proudly serves, Fem suddenly bursts into the house, shocking everyone, and Collet, who already missed him, jumps onto him immediately. Alfred notices how late Fem is and asks what happened, but Fem's expression is tense as he says he needs Alfred's help, and Alfred straightens, telling him to leave everything to him, though Fem insists they don't have time. Alfred still wants him to rest at least for a moment, but Myert quickly brings Fem some water while Alfred grabs his jacket, ready to leave as Fem explains the situation once they start running. Vivy appears out of nowhere, saying she's coming too, and since Alfred knows she's an exceptional sorceress, he agrees. But when she tries climbing onto Fem after Alfred, Fem simply moves, making her yell in annoyance. Alfred calmly tells Fem that Vivy might really be useful, and Fem reluctantly makes an exception because of the emergency, letting Vivy climb on while she thanks him. Myert and Collet wish for their safe return, and Alfred gives them a reassuring smile before the three of them charge off into the night. On the way, Fem explains that an enemy has appeared that he can't handle, and Vivy instantly grins at him, calling him a dog again, while Alfred notices that even when she's scared of Fem, she never backs down. And then he asks about this enemy, so Fem states it's a great undead dragon, the kind of monster that stands at the peak of all beasts, and if it's an adult, its strength doesn't even need an explanation, and on top of that, it's undead. Meaning it moves even while dead, and crushing its head or heart wouldn't be fatal, and to defeat it, someone would have to sever its limbs and burn the entire body to ash, which Alfred knows is not only tedious but a complete headache. So he casually asks Vivy if she still wants to tag along, but she only chuckles that something like a great undead dragon is no match for her bravado. Fem then leads them toward a mountainous area where more wolves suddenly appear and gather around him, and he introduces them as his followers while explaining that last night a single great undead dragon attacked, and his magical wolves tried to repel it but failed, And when they asked Fem for reinforcement, a swarm of lesser, undead dragons appeared and overwhelmed them, which is why Fem came to Alfred, yet despite that. Alfred looks at the scattered dragon corpses and admits the wolves did incredibly well. And Fem says he can probably fight the dragon alone, but casualties will be unavoidable. So as the magical wolf king, he has to protect his pack. And he bows his head and asks Alfred for help. Alfred understands immediately that Fem can fight, but the power gap is clear. And as king, he's lowering his head to save his wolves, so Alfred puts a hand on him, tells him he's magnificent, tells him to raise his head and says of course he'll help, while Vivy is already vibrating with excitement for the upcoming battle. As Alfred notices the quiet settling behind the mountains, Fem says the undead dragons are heading deeper toward his forest, and Alfred realizes it becomes his duty as a guard, because past that forest lies Mulg village. So he tells Fem to leave the main dragon to him, while the other wolves go fend off the lesser ones as much as they can. And Vivy asks what she's supposed to do, so he tells her to do whatever she wants since he trusts her. And she instantly sprints off while he raises his hand and chants a spell calling for the world's filth to be scorched away by the inferno of eternal darkness. And a magic circle appears under him as flames erupt from the mountainside. And he holds back his power so the forest doesn't burn. But he soon realizes the flames aren't enough to turn the dragon to ash as the creature emerges with a growl, proving his suspicion right that a zombie dragon of this magnitude wouldn't fall that easily, especially with its powerful magic barrier, which also explains why the lesser dragons survived by hiding in its shadow. And Alfred simply motivates everyone to give it their all, exactly as they planned. The wolf pack then growls and charges at the small dragons while Alfred activates his magical spears. And even though their speed is impressive, he sees them bounce off the barrier as the dragon fixes its gaze straight on him. And just when Alfred gets ready for round 2, the dragon beats its wings, smashing trees and sending Alfred flying. But the impact of his spears earlier has already cracked the barrier. So as soon as he regains footing, he summons the third volley. And this time the spears streak across the sky, tear through the weakened barrier, and pierce the dragon's body. And the creature releases a horrifying cry, which tells Alfred that even as an undead it still feels pain, making him think it's pitiful enough to end quickly. Meanwhile, the wolves are shredding through the lesser dragons, and Alfred notices all of them now rushing toward the Great One, causing the massive dragon to try to flee. But that's when Vivy unleashes her magic, shouting that she won't let them escape, and she sends a storm of wind blades that slice through the dragon's limbs, and Alfred sees the big dragon's barrier completely gone with no strength left to rebuild it. So he grabs one of his larger spears and drives it into the weak point, and when the creature still twitches, he lights a flame in his palm and wishes it a peaceful sleep as the fire engulfs its body and turns it into ash. The wolves erupt into victorious growls, Fem and the others howl in triumph, and Alfred finally lets out a relieved breath, knowing they have won at last. Just when Alfred thinks the nightmare is over, but soon something new will be coming his way. Comment the strongest wizard if you want to get to know in part 2.